Hello everyone, here we are. We're going to get going with 2 Kings chapter 12. And we remember at the end of the last chapter, we were looking at Joash, who was 7 years old, who had risen to the throne in place of Athaliah, who was Ahaziah's mother. And he had been killed, so she had ruled until Joash was 7, and then they put him on the throne and killed Athaliah. All right, in the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years Jehoiada the priest instructed him. The high places, however, were not removed. Okay, so this could be dangerous. That means they're leaving the Asherah poles, which I showed you pictures of. They're leaving that stuff around. Kind of tempting for those that are more pagan in bent to want to worship. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. Joash said to the priests, "Collect all the money that is brought as sacred offerings to the temple of the Lord, the money collected in the census, the money received from personal vows, and the money brought voluntarily to the temple. Let every priest receive the money from one of the treasurers, then use it to repair whatever damage is found in the temple." But by the 23rd year of King Joash, the priests still had not repaired the temple. Therefore, King Joash summoned Jehoiada the priest and the other priests and asked them, "Why aren't you repairing the damage done to the temple? Take no more money from your treasurers, but hand it over for repairing the temple." The priests agreed that they would not collect any more money from the people and that they would not repair the temple themselves. Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in its lid. He placed it beside the altar on the right side as one enters the temple of the Lord. The priests who guarded the entrance put into the chest all the money that was brought to the temple of the Lord. Whenever they saw that there was a large amount of money in the chest, the royal secretary and the high priest came, counted the money that had been brought into the temple of the Lord, and put it into bags. When the amount had been determined, they gave the money to the men appointed to supervise the work into bags. When the amount had been determined, they gave the money to the men appointed to supervise the work on the temple. With it, they paid those who worked on the temple of the Lord, the carpenters and builders, the masons and stonecutters. They purchased timber and blocks of dressed stone for the repair of the temple of the Lord and met all the other expenses of restoring the temple. The money brought into the temple was not spent for making silver basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, trumpets, or any other articles of gold or silver for the temple of the Lord. It was paid to the workers who used it to repair the temple. They didn't require an accounting from those to whom they gave the money to pay the workers because they acted with complete honesty. The money from the guilt offerings and sin offerings was not brought into the temple of the Lord. It belonged to the priests. About this time, Hazael, king of Aram, went up and attacked Gath and captured it. Now, if you remember, Gath was a Philistine town. Then he turned to attack Jerusalem. But Joash, king of Judah, took all the sacred objects dedicated by his predecessors, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, the kings of Judah, and the gifts he himself had dedicated, and all the gold found in the treasuries of the temple of the Lord and of the royal palace, and he sent them to Hazael, king of Aram, who then withdrew from Jerusalem. So he gave everything away. He'd rather have peace than have riches. Just go away. Here, take it. Go away. As for the other events of the reign of Joash and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? His officials conspired against him and assassinated him at Beth Millo on the road down to Silla. The officials who murdered him were Jozabad, son of Shemeth, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer. Isn't that weird? They're both Jozabad and, let's see, Jozabad, son of Shimeth, and Jehozabad. Bad, B-A-D, at the end of each name, son of Shomer. He died and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. So that's too bad he was assassinated. All right, so in the 23rd year of Joash, son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, so we're going back now to look at something else here in Joash's reign, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 17 years. So this is, we're looking at somebody else, but it's being compared to the 23rd year of Joash. So let's read that again. In the 23rd year of Joash, son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 17 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord by following the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, and he didn't turn away from them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and for a long time he kept them under the power of Hazael, king of Aram, and Ben-Hadad, his son. Then, okay, so that's not the Ben-Hadad that we heard about, who was a king. This is the son now of Hazael. Then Jehoahaz sought the Lord's favor, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. That would be Hazael. Hazael is the one that smothered the king beyond him, before him, and became ruler. And it seems like he's ruling for quite a long time. The Lord provided a deliverer for Israel, and they escaped from the power of Aram. So the Israelites lived in their own homes as they had before, but they didn't turn away from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. They continued in them. Also, the Asherah pole remained standing in Samaria. Nothing had been left of the army of Jehoahaz except 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers, for the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust at threshing time. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoahaz, all he did and his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. And Jehoash, his son, succeeded him as king. In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 16 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and didn't turn away from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He committed them. He continued in them. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash, all he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoash rested, wait, did I say, okay, Jehoash. In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, blah, 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 became Israel. He reigned for 16 years. He did evil. As for the other events in the reign of Jehoash, all he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoash rested with his ancestors, and Jeroboam succeeded him on the throne. Jehoash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Okay, so once again, if you hear similar or names we've heard before, these are new people, okay? Now, Elisha had been suffering from the illness from which he died. Jehoash, king of Israel, went down to see him and wept over him. my father, he cried, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. Elisha said, get a bow and some arrows, and he did so. You know, I'm thinking it's weird. They talk about Jehoash dying and being buried, and then it backtracks and talks about him with Elisha. So you just have to follow, okay? Just listen carefully, all right? Elisha said, get a bow and some arrows, and he did so. Take the bow in your hands, he said to the king of Israel. When he had taken it, Elisha put his hands on the king's hands. "Open the east window," he said, and he opened it. "Shoot," Elijah said, and he shot. "The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Aram," Elisha declared. You will completely destroy the Arameans at Aphek." Then he said, "Take the arrows," and the king took them. Elisha told him, "Strike the ground." He struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, "You should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed it, but now you will defeat it only 3 times. Elisha died and was buried. Now, Moabite raiders used to enter the country every spring. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man, they suddenly they saw a band of raiders, so they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came to life and stood up on his feet. Hazael, king of Aram, oppressed Israel throughout the reign of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them and had compassion and showed concern for them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To this day, he's been unwilling to destroy them or banish them from his presence. Hazael, king of Aram, died, and Ben-Hadad, his son, succeeded him as king. Then Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns he had taken in battle from his father Jehoahaz. 3 times Jehoash defeated him, and so he recovered the Israelite towns. So there's that prophecy fulfilled. All right, so now we're going to flip over to Judah. We've talked about Israel. Now we're going to go to Judah and talk about Amaziah. In the 2nd year of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoadan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not as his father David had done. In everything, he followed the example of his father Joash. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. After the kingdom was firmly in his grasp, he executed the officials who had murdered his father, the king. Yet he did not, remember, they had conspired against him and assassinated him. Yet he did not put the children of the assassins to death in accordance with what is written in the book of the law of Moses, where the Lord commanded, "Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin." Then Amaziah, he was the one who defeated 10,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt and captured Selah, S-E-L-A, in battle, calling it Joktiel, the name it has to this day. Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, the king of Israel, with the challenge, "Come, let us face each other in battle." But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon. Give your daughter to my son in marriage." Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. "You have indeed defeated Edom, and now you're arrogant. Glory in your victory, but stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall and that of Judah also?" So he's saying, look, don't get high on your horse because you had this big glory in Edom, and now come and challenge me and ask me to go to war with you, or you're going to get trampled. Amaziah, however, would not listen. So Jehoash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Jehoash went to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 400 cubits long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the royal palace. He also took hostages and returned to Samaria. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash, what he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jehoash rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and Jeroboam his son succeeded him as king. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? They conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. Wow. So Amaziah also has been assassinated. He was brought back by horse and was buried in Jerusalem with his ancestors in the city of David. Then all the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was the one who rebuilt Elath and restored it to Judah after Amaziah rested with his ancestors. In the 15th year of Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria. So we've just hopped backwards again. And he reigned 41 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and didn't turn away from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He was the one who restored the boundaries of Israel from Lebo-Hamath to the Dead Sea. In accordance with the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, spoken through his servant Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath-Hepher. The Lord had seen how bitterly everyone in Israel, whether slave or free, was suffering. There was no one to help them, and since the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash. As for the other events of Jeroboam's reign, all he did and his military achievements, including how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which had belonged to Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Jeroboam rested with his ancestors, the king of Israel, and Zechariah, his son, succeeded him as king. Now, we are covering quite a few years here because some of them are reigning 20 years, some are reigning 40 years. So we're scooching along here. We're really cruising through all these kings, okay? And we are jumping back and forth. We're hearing what happened in Judah, person-wise, from one king to his son to the next king. Then we're going and hopping over to Israel, and we're hearing about that king. So Amaziah represents Judah. He was the king of Judah. And the son that replaced him was Azariah. Okay, so there's Judah. That's where we're at currently. And then okay. Then there was Jeroboam in Israel. No, let's see. In the 15th year of Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria. So there's your king of Israel. Now, he died, and his son, let's see. Son of Joash, king of Jeroboam, and then Jeroboam died, and now we have Zechariah. Okay, so that's where we're leaving it. We've got Azariah in Judah, and we've got Zechariah in Israel. And that's where we're leaving it. I love you very much. I'll see you tomorrow for the next chapter, which will be 15. And you have a good evening. And I don't know how a holster that you have to unbutton and pull your weapon out. I don't know how that's mistaken for a taser, which is kept on your weak side. If you're an officer, your taser is on your non-dominant hand side. and having to flip open a holster and pull out a gun. I don't know why that wouldn't click in your brain. And I recognize that this sounds conspiratorial, but I'm starting to really wonder because, you know, there is a big trial going on in Minneapolis, and now all of a sudden, you know, we've got this coincidence that another black man is shot, and, you know, I don't know, I just don't trust anymore. We've seen so much lying and so much dastardliness that I don't trust anymore that this wasn't a setup. And what better to have the whole scenario done by a woman so that, you know, we'll feel more merciful. And, you know, anyway, just my 2 cents on that one. I just don't trust anything that I see now. Anyway, I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.